Chapter 1. Half a century. Still spilling wine. Part 1. Spilled again. The wine was meant for the sauce, but life has its own recipes for awakening. 1 second it sat on the counter, a full-bodied red in a long-stemmed glass, the good one. The last one without a chip. The one she'd been saving, without realising why. The next second it was airborne, spinning like it knew it was doomed, before exploding against the tile in a mess of blood-coloured glass, and a sound that echoed through her ribs. Everything sacred has a way of shattering when you're not ready. Annoyed, shit, Uma said, mid-stir. Her husband poked his head around the corner, wide-eyed. Surprised. Was that the good glass? She blinked at the spill. It was the last one that didn't have a story, she said, laying the wooden spoon gently in the sink as if reverence might undo impact. Gone to glory. He gave her a mock salute, then crossed the kitchen in his beat-up work boots and knelt beside her, already pulling paper towels off the roll, like he'd done this 1,000 times before, which he had. Harms, she murmured. There's a piece under the stove. I see it, he said, sweeping it up. Annoyed. This is why we can't have nice things. We never had nice things, she smirked. We had kids. They moved in a rhythm only people who've weathered storms can learn, people who'd done this dance a dozen ways over. No blame, no raised voices, just shared space, shared cleanup, shared gravity. When they were done, he pecked the top of her forehead with a kiss and said, I'm going to check the grill. Tell the pork I'm sorry, she called after him. I'll lie for you, he grinned, disappearing through the screen door. She laughed, not because it was funny, but because it wasn't tragic. And that, in this season of life, was enough reason to laugh. Years ago, she might have snapped, or gone silent and internalized the whole thing as proof that she ruined everything she touched. But now, at almost 50, she just poured herself another glass. Not as full, not as sacred, and gave the sauce a slow, absent-minded stir. Her hand trembled slightly, not from nerves, from recognition. Because somehow, that stupid glass had broken open something that hadn't surfaced in years, not since she was a child. It wasn't the wine. It was the slow simmer of sauce in the silent kitchen, the way her body stilled, the way the memory tiptoed in, uninvited but not unwelcome. Then came the image, not of the broken glass, but of a chair, cold, metal-legged, plastic-backed, digging into the backs of her knees, and a 7-year-old girl learning for the first time how to disappear. She sipped her wine, staring at the stove, while the memory uncurled in her chest like steam rising off a hot plate. The scent of garlic and tomatoes wafted upwards. A small part of her wanted to laugh again, but something deeper stirred, something much older. Steadying herself, she pressed her palm flat on the cold granite counter. And that's when it happened. It wasn't a flashback. It was a return. To a classroom, a chair, a silence that once held too much. Suddenly, she was there, tucked inside thick winter tights under a corduroy jumper, waiting for permission to exist.
Part 2.
The chair. The chair was rigid plastic, beige, maybe grey, hard to tell under the flickering fluorescent lights that bleached the colour out of everything. The desk was bolted to the side, a cold metal limb jutting out like an afterthought. Its laminate top was dull, edges rubbed smooth by decades of chewed pencils and bored fingers. It wasn't a classroom. It was more like a borrowed space on Sunday night, where children were expected to sit still, be quiet, and receive discipline disguised as scripture, listening like well-behaved boys and girls, while some young woman with too much perfume read from the book of Proverbs, like it was bedtime poetry that only made sense to grown-ups. Uma was 7, second grade, wearing thick winter leotards under a navy corduroy jumper and shoes that clicked softly on the glossy linoleum floor. Too softly to make an excuse, too loudly to vanish. She'd needed to pee since the opening prayer and worship song, but she hadn't raised her hand. She couldn't. Not here. Not like this. Not with that paddle. A real wooden one, smooth and gleaming with warning. It hung by the door like a sacred talisman, half permission, half threat. No one said it was used for spanking, but everyone knew it. The rules were clear and terrifying to Uma. If you had to go to the bathroom, you must wait until the teacher pauses. Raise your hand. Ask permission. Walk in front of the entire room. Take the paddle. Carry it down the hallway like a wooden flag, declaring, "I need something. I can't hold it anymore. I'm interrupting." The paddle didn't just give access. It marked you. And Uma couldn't bear it. Her hand twitched once, almost went up, but fear squeezed tighter than her bladder. What if she says no? What if everyone looks? What if she asks why? What if I can't find the words? What if I cry? What if the other kids laugh? What if I ruin everything? What if... And then it happened, not in a slow trickle, not as a choice, not in time to reconsider, just release. A sudden rush of relief for one glorious, horrifying second. Her body went slack, like the exhale after taking off tights that pinched the waist. Then came the heat, the spreading circle of wet on the seat beneath her, the shock, the shame. The air changed. Her tights were soaked, clinging cold to her skin. But she didn't move. Arms folded tight across her chest, she locked her body in place, like stillness might undo the truth. The sound of the teacher's voice went fuzzy. The lights buzzed. Or maybe it was her ears. Ringing, retreating, trying to fold the whole moment inward so it couldn't be seen. Don't move. Don't breathe. Don't let it show. Her throat closed. Her hands went numb. Her face burned so hot she could hear her heartbeat in her temples. Inside, something curled in on itself. Something sacred went quiet. Something disappeared. It wasn't just the accident. It was the silence that followed. Part 3. Don't look down. Uma kept her knees together, shoes flat, hands still. She didn't cry, she didn't speak, she didn't shift her weight. She just sat in it, praying. Not for forgiveness, but for evaporation, for invisibility, as if the heat would fade, as if the wet would dry. As if pretending could protect her. If she didn't acknowledge it, maybe no one else would either. She didn't dare look down. She didn't look anywhere. Not at the desk. Not at the door. Not at the paddle that still hung like a warning. The teacher went on reading. Proverbs probably, something about wisdom, or obedience, or the fear of God. But fear? Fear was already seated in the third row, quiet, drenched, and too ashamed to raise her hand. The closing prayer came, voices murmured, chairs scraped, and children stood. Uma sat, heart thudding, waiting as they filed out the door. When the room was nearly empty, and the teacher turned her back to erase the blackboard, she stood, slowly. The back of her tights peeled from the hard plastic with a soft, awful sound. She shuffled forward, carefully, like a ghost of herself, pretending to know exactly what she was doing. She didn't look back at the chair. She didn't look at the teacher. She didn't look at anyone. She just turned towards the sanctuary, walking strangely, like someone balancing a secret, too fragile to spill. The ladies' room was just down the hall. She could have gone in, could have locked the stool, could have cried, could have cleaned up the mess and wiped herself with scratchy brown paper towels. But she didn't. She just kept walking. Each step felt like a spotlight, but no one said anything. No one stopped her. She found her mother in the vestibule, locked in conversation with another woman from the prayer circle. Her mother glanced up and offered a brief smile that said, "Still talking. Be good." So, Uma stood beside her in silence. She didn't fidget. She didn't speak. She clenched her fists inside her white turtleneck sleeves and tried not to move too much, so her clothes wouldn't make that cringy, wet cling sound. The room buzzed with a sea of voices, coats, and adults too busy with their after-service rituals. A baby cried faintly in the distance. The air smelled like mothballs, perfume, mint chewing gum, and tithing envelopes. Nobody looked twice. No one said anything about her clothes. No one noticed the way her shoulders curled inward. No one noticed how small she made herself. She didn't remember getting in the car that night. Didn't remember the ride home. Didn't remember if anyone said anything. Didn't remember if she told the truth or buried it so deeply it stopped feeling like hers. Somewhere, her memory vanished into the space between Sunday night and Monday morning. All she remembered was the stillness and the quiet, and how no one came to get her out of it. In that silence, Uma learned to carry shame like a secret language, not spoken, just understood. Part 4. 43 years later, and I still remember the chair. The memory remains not because it wounded, but because it waited. Uma's wine sat untouched, dark as a bruise. She stared out the kitchen window, but she wasn't looking. She was listening to something deep beneath the silence. The image of the chair was as clear as a photograph. It hadn't left. All these years later, it was still there, etched into her body like muscle memory. Not just the shape of the seat, but her shape inside it. The little girl, corduroy jumper, holding herself in, flooded tights, shame, sitting heavier than her weight. She whispered to the memory, not in anger, but in recognition. I didn't even cry. She wasn't sure if she meant back then or now. Because this wasn't just a memory. It was a seed, planted without permission, that grew roots around her voice, her body, her needs. It had followed her into her teen years, into marriage, into motherhood, into the way she apologized too quickly or waited to be invited or said, "I'm fine," instead of, "I'm not okay." Because at 7 years old, she had learned that asking was dangerous, that needing something was embarrassing, that being seen was sometimes worse than being invisible. She had learned to sit in her own silence and wait for it to pass, but it never really did. The kettle clicked off. The sauce bubbled and hissed softly. Outside, her husband cleared his throat and adjusted the grill lid. The world moved on. The moment held still. Weirdly, it was a story she'd never told. Not to a friend, not to a therapist, not even to herself. And yet, her body remembered. It was still here, still holding court in her chest, and colouring how she moved through the world. Not because she peed herself, but because she had been too scared to ask for permission to be human. Uma walked over to the kitchen table. There was no laptop, no homework, no book bags or gel pen doodles from kids long grown. Just her, still standing, still mending the holy thread between past and present. She took another sip of her wine, opened her journal, and pressed her pencil to the paper. There was no need to dramatize it, no need to build it up, just the truth, offered gently. She wrote, "We don't forget shame. We simply learn how to carry it in quieter ways." Then more, there are moments, small, silent, when a soul tucks part of itself away, not out of weakness, but instinct, out of survival. She paused and took a deep breath. The next sentence rising from her centre, not her head. Uma did not simply wet her tights. She vanished. The child didn't disappear because of the mess. She disappeared because no one saw her inside it. Because the room was too loud, the rules were too sharp. The adults were too oblivious to the tremble in her small voice or the holiness in her need. So she hid. She hid the ache. She hid the embarrassment. She hid the child, the sacred, radiant child, behind a silence so seamless she forgot where she put her. But now the thread shimmered again. The golden cord that once tied her voice to her body to her need to her worth, was beginning to reweave itself. Not because the shame was gone, but because she was ready to hold it differently. Uma's pencil flitted reverently across the paper.
That moment in the chair. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't a weakness. It was a splitting, a chrysalis fracture. And now I return to gather the part of me that I left behind. Not to erase it, but to reclaim it. To whisper to that small, shaking girl, "You were brave to hold it. You're brave to let it go. You do not have to disappear ever again." And with that, the chair loosened its grip, and the story no longer lived in silence. It lived in her, fully, finally, freely.